Hi there. Welcome to this webinar with MPH, and I'm very pleased to say we've actually got James from TeamViewer on the line as well, which is excellent. So just to introduce myself, my name is Chris Lee, partner director with MPH. MPH Group are the original high value add distributor in this space, the assisted reality space, which we'll go into a little bit more detail as we go through the webinar. We've also got Precious on the line, who is very, very familiar with both the hardware and TeamViewer as a software platform. And he'll be helping us all to understand a little bit more about the technology that's available. The focus today is very much the construction sector, and that's how we'll be approaching things. And we'll have some very valuable input from James as well. So as I say, it's a real pleasure to have him on the call. So when we look at construction and how assisted reality can help, the flow for the next sort of 20 minutes or so is very much along the lines of imagining that I'm within the construction sector and looking at this technology and how to start to begin to understand how it can assist me in day-to-day practice, how to save time, how to make things safer and more effective in the workplace, and why is this technology so important. And to do that, one of the things that we need to do is just look at some of the constraints that typically you might have on a work site, for example, and how TeamViewer as a software platform and a headset like, for example, the RealWear headset, which is highly ruggedized, can come together to make things more effective. So when we look at average construction site, very often there are things like restrictions on what you can have with your hands. So you'll need gloves on, for example. Typically they're hard hat environments. And the question very often from someone looking at this technology is, why can't I just use a phone or potentially a tablet to have the same workflow? And the answer is TeamViewer will actually fit with any desktop environment, tablet environment, phone environment. But when we look at construction as an environment, we want people to be able to operate hands-free with their device. So to simplify a RealWear headset, it's essentially like putting a mobile phone in front of your eyes. That's what it comes down to. And Precious will be able to demonstrate that as we go through the call. And we can look at how someone can interact with someone who may be in an office environment who is assisting that individual in the workplace using a RealWear headset. So Precious, if I was talking to you as someone potentially who was looking to roll out this particular hardware solution, and I was trying to understand the basic functionality of not just the hardware, but the software as well, what sort of, workflow would you start to begin to explain to them?
Yeah, so thanks, Chris. We'll be focusing on sort of TeamViewer as a solution for a number of reasons, because what sets them apart is the fact that they have a complete solution set. So as Chris mentioned there, you've got a remote assistance use case, which is usually the primary reason for people adopting this technology. So being able to support field engineers or field workers remotely from anywhere, basically. And then you have the extended use case, which is usually with digital workflows or guided work instructions, where you can actually build a set of instructions for any type of job and just have your people sort of work through that in a very sort of planned out way. So some of the benefits that you get with things with those two sort of use cases will be things like improved teamwork, improvement in the quality of the service you're delivering, which means things like quality assurance can be maintained regardless of who's performing a particular job. So I could have a trainee, for example, carry out a task, and the level of quality that is delivered is the same as an expert who's been doing it for 35 years because they're working off the same set of instructions. And on the remote assist side of things, you always have an expert available to dial in or dial out, depending on who's initiating the calls, just to make sure people have got the right knowledge at their disposal.
So so essentially, does that mean that I don't, if I'm involved in that industry, does it mean that my workforce don't necessarily have to travel to specific locations either within the country or internationally to
exactly
look at a given? It's okay, right? So
exactly.
I'm saving a lot of time and money on
Exactly.
that.
So yeah, so the time saving and the money saving is I mean the time saving is self-explanatory. I mean you don't have to waste time on flights and hotels and all those others, not including the associated costs with all of those things. But it's the value in which you can get from having your experts being able to be in multiple locations relatively quickly and at the same time. Because in construction projects, for example, I could have a senior engineer sort of going through snagging on different properties at the same time, having all of them live on a call with someone walking through with a headset, going through each property and going through their checklists. So that's where it's not just a time saving there, but there's also an efficiency to how you can actually plan projects and get the most value off of your experts, because a lot of the time you get very few experts as far as the ratio goes, experts to sort of field workers. So you want to be able to maximize their time, not just in the time that it saves, but also in terms of value and what that brings in for your business. So yeah.
What about, so if I'm looking at the safety angle as well, which is obviously, of critical importance to so many companies out there, and protecting their workforce, are you able to be using both hands to, I mean, something as simple as hanging onto a ladder, for example, where clearly you don't want to take your hands off whatever it is. Are you
Exactly.
able to use? Yeah, I mean, simple stuff, right?
Yeah.
But are you able to use, voice commands to allow, someone to, navigate through a workflow? And are you actually able to have someone join you in your environment who may be, in an office somewhere using a regular desktop or tablet?
Yeah, exactly. So both of those scenarios are sort of covered. So there are two sides to that safety feature. So on the one hand, you have the voice activation on the RealWear device, or most sort of AR headsets will allow you to use your voice to, and by AR I specifically mean assisted reality, not to confuse that with augmented. So these devices will allow you to use your voice to navigate whatever you're looking at on
That was
screen.
precious. Sorry, but that was a very good point that you made about assisted. So essentially, just to explain what that means is you're not actually in a virtual environment at all. You've at all times, you're 100% aware of what's going on around you. Your eyes are able to focus outside of the screen. So it's you're in a regular reality, and simply there's assistance that's going on, be that a schematic of what you're working on, or being able to have someone sort of dial in. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, so exactly that. So that's on the hardware side. And then on the software, which is what TeamViewer sort of brings in, are very sophisticated capabilities where you're able to use one of the tools called AI Studio. So what that allows you to do is build into your workflows safety checks. So for example, if I wanted to make sure no one on site was doing a particular procedure without gloves, I can build in to my workflow a step that gets them to show their hands with gloves on, and it uses sort of AI learning to sort of take a snapshot or recognize that that user is either wearing gloves or not. If they're not, then it doesn't progress the workflow, so they can't actually complete that job. Or if they are wearing it, then it moves them on. So as you can imagine, with to use the RealWear device with pretty much any PPE that's out there. So whether that's safety glasses, whatever it is your workers are used to, the RealWear device sort of adapts to that, and you're able to use it. And obviously, the TeamViewer software will be able to work with that as well.
Can it be used with hard hats, for example?
Yeah, hard hats are one of the more popular sort of accessories that you use the RealWear device with. I personally find them more comfortable using them with hard hats, but it also come you can use them with bum caps. You can use them with work bands as well.
Perfect. Okay. I'll tell you what, Precious, just if you could just get a RealWear unit and just show people what we're talking about when we talk about an assisted reality product. And just while you're doing that, James, TeamViewer have been, I mean, they are a dominant player in this sector, and I mean, you must be working with many different construction companies globally. Is that right?
Yeah, it's quite a varied number of construction industry companies that we're working with at the moment. It is an area where we find customers are looking to speed up the amount of the speed of the training that they can do and the quickness that they can onboard and do training worldwide. So it really does speed up the processes, and then obviously speed up the projects from a frontline point of view.
Brilliant. Okay, and I know Precious shortly will be going through a sort of a workflow, but is TeamViewer, can you create bespoke workflows for people? I mean, do you have a support team, within Europe and globally that can work with MPH to create that bespoke workflow?
Yeah.
Is that possible?
Yeah, so as standard, when we're looking at a particular project, we'll come on site and have a look at the customer's needs and what the customer's trying to achieve, and then we'll work with our support team backhand, and they will put together a bespoke workflow, whether that's looking at the construction or looking at something from a safety kind of view, a safety guideline point of view, and we'll put that workflow together to make sure it's as simple and as efficient, and that someone that's basically a layman who's never used this software before can then put on this thing, look at this guide, and within a very short time, able to construct and work through these workflows and be upskilled as quickly as possible.
Brilliant. Okay, so there's a lot of additional support that
Exactly.
You don't just buy a package and then you get left to sort of get your head around it yourself. It's something that yeah.
One of the big things that we look for when we're taking on a project is making sure that users are comfortable and there is an ongoing continuous use of the product and a continuous ethos internally to make sure that new starters are enabled and engaged with it and understand how to use those workflows properly, because the last thing we want to do is them not be able to do that on a long-term basis.
Fantastic. And I know, I mean, Precious has spent a lot of time in your European HQ, just spending time with the tech support team. And I know that we've got a fantastic relationship with those guys. And from our base in Hungerford, we can have, in-house sessions where we teach people, but we can also do that virtually. And I know that TeamViewer would always be very keen to join in that environment as well, and just make sure the customer completely understands what's available to them. So that's I think that's a real value add that TeamViewer bring to the party for sure. So Precious, sorry, I totally interrupted. You were showing us the RealWear headset. Can you just talk us through sort of just basic functionality of how someone would get to grips with using a headset, and most importantly, because one of the concerns that a lot of companies have, especially in the construction industry, is user adoption, i.e., are people going to actually feel comfortable using the product, and how quickly can we get them up to speed? Which again, we can do bespoke trainings for individuals or companies, either online or on site as well. But Precious, just very briefly, if you could just sort of talk through the hardware, how the user interacts with it, and then we'll get onto the actual software workflow as well.
Yeah, so on a very sort of high level with the device, you've got a primary set of mics. I mean, the most important things to remember on the device itself is you've got microphones that are on the display pod, which help both you speaking into the device and picking up your commands, but also listens for surrounding noise. So you've got noise cancelling up to 100 decibels on this device that's active. So it means even in loud environments, you're still able to communicate with whoever is on the other side of the line, so to speak. And then you've got your camera, unit, which is literally by just on top of your ears when you wear them. You can have those on either side just by rotating the boom arm like so. So whether your user's preference with the left or right, they'll be catered for with the same unit, very little modification. Now, in terms of how you interact with the device, there are two types of commands in terms of voice commands. The first one will be global commands, which are the same set of commands that perform very specific actions, regardless of what screen you're looking at. And then you've got a second set of commands, which are called say what you see. And effectively, all you're doing is reading off whatever it is you want to click through on screen. So just to give you a very quick demonstration of that. So you've got so you're looking at my screen on my headset at the moment. And all I would do is use one of these say what you see commands, for example, if I wanted to go into the app screen. So I would say my programs. And it opens the app screen, and you can see the sort of numerous applications I've got installed here.
Yeah.
Again,
you don't need all eyes, do you? That's
exactly. This is just me going crazy. So if you open, for example, my files, it opens up the file manager there, and you can again navigate the device. Now, one of the cool things that you're able to do, as you probably noticed, you've got a bunch of numbers on screen here that help you navigate the device. So you don't always have to say my downloads, for example, or my drives or whatever it is, if they're too long, or for security reasons, you don't want people knowing what application you're running on site, for example. So what you can do is use those numbers as an alternate way of navigating the device. So I could say, for example, select item 3. And it opens up that item that's linked to that number. So they're called Where ML indicators, and you'll find them littered across every screen. So if I say navigate back, even on the home screen here with the app screen, you've got all of those numbers attached to every single clickable item on screen. So as a very brief sort of high level overview, that's usually how you interact with the device. Global commands are, like I said, specific actions that you can perform at any screen. One of them will be things like navigate home, which you've heard me use, navigate back, which just takes you back one step. So navigate home, which will take you back to the home screen. One of the
Precious, if I wanted to join in with what you're seeing and actually sort of communicate with you and look at what essentially what your eyes are seeing, is that something that you can do?
Yeah, so that's where TeamViewer comes along. So on that TeamViewer software, it allows you to dial into, so you can have it going both ways. So either the field engineer can dial into a remote expert or vice versa, and then you'll be able to see exactly what they're seeing. One of the cool, I wanted to show very quickly, one of the use cases you can actually start using out of the box as soon as you get your RealWear headsets, which a lot of people find really useful. It's something called document navigation. So it's a way of being able to view documents without having to use your hands and working remotely. So you can imagine in the construction, for example, having to look at a blueprint or working off of a building plan, and not being able to work without your hands previously, where you have to pull out the sheet and use that as reference, which comes with its own limitations, because it slows down your work rate because you're using your hands, you're alternating that between doing the work and looking at what you need to reference. The other factor is the weather conditions, right? So if you've got some sort of tablet or a paper PDF in front of you, you're very, very much dependent on the weather. And in the UK or anywhere else where weather can be a not so predictable thing, it becomes
like today with the snow.
Exactly. It becomes an issue.
Well, and also if you're wearing gloves, I mean, most, tablet screens just won't work with gloves. So that's what about ATEX? Is that something that is there hardware that can actually operate in ATEX environments?
Yep, so there's the HMT1Z1, which will do pretty much everything the same. It's just approved for use in potentially explosive environments, which is the difference there. So just to dive into that document navigation use case a little bit. So I'll open a document on my files, for example. So my files. And all of this, the user can do without the use of their hands. So again, just talking to the device. So I go, my photos. Select item 1. Select item 2. Now you can see I've got this building plan over here, and I can navigate that, look at that, reference that as I'm doing whatever work I'm doing. For example, I could use the, so you've got a purple outline here that tells you what part of the document you're looking at, right? So it keeps you on track with where you are. So I could say zoom level 3, and it zooms into that environment. Now, moving my head, I can pan around and focus on different parts of the drawing. Now, that can be annoying if you just want to focus on a particular area, for example. So on screen, which is one of those say what you see commands, I could just say freeze window. And now, no matter how much I move my head around or that device, it stays on that, it stays locked on that face. And now all I need to do to control it again is say control window. And now I can move to a different part, freeze window, and focus on that and reference that for whatever I need to do. Same thing if I need to go to the next asset. So I could just say view next, and it'll move me to the next asset. Again, I can perform the same action. So this can be used for things like PDFs, sort of blueprints, whatever asset you're looking at. And it's something you can use straight out the box.
So to be clear, this is all complete. Everything that we're doing at the moment is completely hands-free and voice controlled.
Correct.
And yeah, great. That's yeah, fantastic. Okay, so the user is always completely aware of their environment, because essentially they've got a screen that's floating in front of one of their eyes, but every other element of what's going on around them is still completely visible, and all their senses are able to react to whatever's happening in that particular environment, which is great. Let's look at let's look at the actual software workflow with TeamViewer and just how we can start. I mean, this hardware is great, but it's nothing without sort of having the right software to be able to sort of create a workflow that makes sense in a bespoke environment, in a construction environment, or whatever environment you want it to be in. So how does that work, Precious?
Yeah. So just as a very quick visual, I'll show you what the workflow looks like to put together from a back-end perspective. So one of the cool things about this platform is that it's zero code. So you don't need to sort of enroll your people in any kind of coding or sort of extensive training with all of this. You can learn this in a relatively short amount of time. So all you're doing is dragging and dropping visual assets to edit your workflows as you need them. So you've got different UI templates that you can use here, and UI is just user interface. So this is what your users are going to be interacting with. And then you've got components that you can put in, which perform certain actions which you want them to do on the workflow. So I'll show you an example of that workflow. So this is just one of them and what that looks like. And then again, anyone can build something like this. Now, going back to the application. So I've just opened the TeamViewer application. This is the sort of home page when you open the application, and you've got several tasks here. I can open my task. So my task will be anything that's assigned to that particular user. So they can have specific jobs that they need to do on a regular basis. For example, you can assign it to them, and those tasks will come under my tasks. They can have completely new jobs. Maybe it's just a procedure you've just tested. You want to prep a procedure for training purposes. You can have new tasks assigned to people, or they can scan one on site, depending on the nature if they're going between sites and things like that. So just as an example, if we open up my tasks and I open up a, let's go to the site inspection. So on here, this is just a simple workflow that I've put together just to go through different sort of use cases with a workflow. So I'm going to walk through an inspection here. So continue. Here, just the first step, input a date, which is what we've done here. So we'll call that 2023, confirm. So the way we've designed this workflow, and again, you can have this look and feel and perform as you want it. So this, you can have it linear, so you go from step to step to step, or something like this, which is a bit more free flowing. So at any point, I can jump between steps depending on who's doing this. So if I don't need certain tasks done,
you can make it really easy for an operator to understand it very quickly just by using a linear approach, essentially, is what you're saying, Precious.
Exactly. But something like this adapts it for your experts, because for some people who are more experienced, they don't need to go through every single step. They can just jump through to whatever it is they want to go through. So here I can jump to type of site, for example. It's a junction crossing. Pick any one of those. That's a selected step. I can go into something like a cable condition, for example, and use a checklist. So if I say select item once, save selection, and it moves me. So here I can either add a comment if I wanted to. So record. My name is Precious. Well, so I say Francis. So I can cancel that if I'm not happy with it. Record. My name is Precious. There we go. Confirm. And that's sort of a quick speech to text that you can use as well. So if you're going around doing snagging or want to sort of support any kind of evidence you've taken, then you can use the record function here. Confirm. Continue. And similarly, you can use things like taking photos, right, to record sort of evidence of a job done, for example. So you get, again, part of that quality assurance. So if I go into, for example, let's go into faults. Confirm. Return. No, I don't want to exit the workflow. Confirm. It's inside controller. That's got a picture step attached to it. There we go. So here I can sort of say, take picture. Got a view of Mike's car outside there. And it's taken that picture, save that. I can take another picture if I need to, or I can continue with the work. And it publishes a report from this that you can then send to a supervisor, for example, or you can have this fully integrated, which is another thing TeamViewer are really good at, is the integration with your backend system.
Okay, so just on that, Precious, just on that point, that basically means that your paperwork's done in real time, rather than you having to do any forms after the event, or spend time in your truck or whatever. Okay, got it. That's fantastic.
So part of the problem with filling out paper forms is it's a two-step procedure, because one, you fill out the form, and then two, you have to then input those details into some kind of management system on the back end. TeamViewer allows you to do this workflow like this, and then it sort of integrates that into your backend system. So relevant information gets pushed to where it needs to go. And so things like registering fault equipments that need to be replaced, for example, can be done almost no touch.
That goes straight to head office, and before you've even left site, they can be actually requesting someone else to attend, or requesting the specific parts that you need, or whatever in real time. Essentially, is what's going on. Is that right, Precious?
Exactly right. So that process can be fully automated along that chain. And again, so this is just a glimpse of how you can use these workflows to get sort of maximum value. So some of the benefits of this will be in things like training, for example. We've noticed a lot of people they pick up a lot of tasks a lot quickly doing something, as opposed to sitting in a classroom and just talking through it. So giving trainees an opportunity to actually just do the job while learning, it improves that training time is short. It reduces that time you spend onboarding, and it makes your workforce basically fit for purpose a lot sooner than what we would have seen in the past.
A lot to digest, and unfortunately, we're pretty much out of time. So, James, what size companies can you scale with businesses that have got 3 or 4 people using the software, and can you scale with organizations that might have thousands of individuals? Is that possible?
That's the whole point of the way it's been created is so it gives it that ability to do that. We're dealing with customers who have 2 or 3 people off site who they need to deal with, but you can scale that right up to people who have thousands.
Okay.
And if we've done site by site as well. So
yeah. Okay, fantastic. Well, this is it's just a glimpse into what's available, and MPH was, I believe, the first distributor who distributed TeamViewer in the UK marketplace, and we're a very proud partner with TeamViewer. And your business model, James, is essentially you work with key distributors who will sell into resellers who can work with specific vertical corporates. And we as a team, including sort of James, myself, Precious, and we've got a whole back end sales support team as well. Anyone who wants to book in a call with us to deep dive into much more specific environments than perhaps we've dealt with today. We've been looking at construction as a particular vertical. This is applicable to pretty much any environment you can think of, and if you'd like to contact us, then please feel free, contact us at MPH Group, and we'll book a call in, and we'll jump on it and just go through everything that we can do to assist you with your business and make your workflows so much more effective, make your employees safer, and cut down, travel costs and any sort of green carbon footprint, obviously associated with travel, we can mitigate against that as well. So what I'd like to do is really thank everyone who's on this particular webinar for their time. I'd very much like to thank James for your time. Thank you, James. It's much appreciated.
Pleasure.
Yeah, and Precious, as always, it's great listening to you. You've got such a fantastic understanding, so it's a real pleasure. But thank you very much, and we'll be doing future webinars, so hopefully we'll see you on those as well.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Yeah, thank you.